Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lex and I would greatly appreciate if you want to support me. If you'd like to support the channel, if you would consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. It really helps to get the videos out there and it inspires me to keep creating. Today we are going to talk about Married at First Sight, Season 18, Episode 13. And I will also be recapping After Party, not in this video, but I will be recording tomorrow a recap of last week's After Party and this week's After Party because David and Michelle were on each week respectively, so we'll talk a little bit about what they talked about, so that video will be recorded tomorrow. Anyways, let's jump into the show. So we start off with Emem and Akechi. They meet up at an ice cream shop because remember, these two are dating now.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward. Trying to go backwards and get to know each other when it's something.
So, she says in the confessional, look, my husband wants to take a step back, so Ike will be dating me. Now, we do find out that Ikechi did request this date, but for her, obviously she says this is not really typically who she is, this whole stepping back, not really asking any questions, not really like getting to know her partner. It's just not really usually the way she vibes. And again, I understand that. I'm so sorry, I'll cut that out. But yeah, and I understand that, especially in a situation where you're married to somebody and there's this long list of stipulations. You can't ask him a question. You can't do this. You can't do that. Anyways, now Ikechi does also say in the confessional that it is awkward to go backwards, but right now this is the only way he can see this working. And I'm like, Ikechi, why are you playing in our faces? I feel like there's 3 couples that are just straight up playing in all of our faces, pretending that this is real, pretending that they're trying. I think Madison is one of those people, and I also think Juan and Carla. It's deception. I just think Juan is out. We obviously know Michelle, so that's why I'm not saying her, but I just feel like almost all of these couples are playing in our faces, and it's really driving me nuts. So Ikechi starts trying to make small talk on this little ice cream day, and by the way, Emem was looking fire in that suit she had on. She looked chef kiss. I don't know how Ikechi don't see what he's missing. But anyway, Ikechi tries to make small talk by saying, oh, like what brings you joy? And she's like, my friends, work, being supported. She's like, okay, so what brings you joy? And he's like, oh, well, this weekend I'm going back to Houston to go to homecoming. I'm going to get to meet my niece. I'm going to get to be with my mom and my brother and everybody. So I'm really excited about that. And she's like, oh, I would love to meet your mom.
Like I can text you in the morning, see how you doing, and at night make sure you made it home.
I would definitely like communication from you.
Okay. Well.
Emem, come on, sis, come on. Emem, I ain't gonna hold you. In this conversation, I felt like Emem was doing a lot because, girl, you and I and Ikechi and every single person here knows that you guys are not at a point that you're gonna meet his mom. So why would you even say that? If he wanted you there, he would have invited you, and he clearly did not invite you to this. Okay, this man had no problem being 41 years old, going to homecoming, or is he 43? But he's in his 40s. I'm sorry, like, I understand homecoming is a big thing down south. I didn't grow up down south. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. So I'm not familiar a lot with homecoming culture. I didn't go to an HBCU. But being 41 years old and going back to college homecoming, why is we doing this? Like, and especially going there alone as a married man. So he's like, and you could tell on Ikechi's face, he was not feeling it. He was like, well, what I can do is I can check on you like in the morning and the evening to make sure you made it home okay, to make sure that everything's going well. Ikechi, play in someone else's face. You ain't texting nobody. So, Ikechi then tries to take out some cards so they can play cards. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, so I brought a deck of cards. You know how to play blackjack? Was it blackjack or spades? I don't remember. But he's like, you know how to play? She's like, yeah. So Emem notices, she's like, oh, I see you're not wearing your wedding ring. Like, what's going on? And again, Emem, strike two, sis. What are we doing? You know very well that this man is not wearing his wedding ring. You know very well that this man does not look at this as a real marriage. You know very well this man does not see you as no kind of wife or anything like that. You know that very well, Emem. Come on, girl. Come on. And Casey says, oh, you know, I take it off when I'm doing dishes and I just kind of forgot to put it. And Casey's probably never worn that ring in his life. He has probably never worn that ring in his life. So Emem, of course, lets us know in the confessional that she feels that it is very disrespectful that her husband is not wearing his wedding ring and he's going to be going out to homecoming all on his own and he doesn't even wear his ring. And I'm like, girl, I'm like, Emem, are you like doing what everyone else is doing where you're pretending this is still a thing, or do you really think this is still a thing? Because if you really think this is still a thing, girl, I'm gonna need you to calm down. Calm down. You can't have one episode where you're saying, you know what, I do agree with taking a step back, and then the next episode you're doing this. Come on, sis. Come on. All right, so next we make it to Thomas and Camille, Mr. Put It Down, okay? Thomas is Mr. Put It Down, clearly. So they're using some kind of like, one of those massage gun things that like vibrates.
Okay. What level do you have that on?
One. It's one.
Oh, okay.
But now that you mention it,
And at first, Camille is doing it on Thomas. And she says, you know, look, Tom is one of the most genuine people I've ever met. Like, he's so nice. He's so respectful. And that kind of translates to the bedroom a little bit, where I feel like Tom is a little bit too nice, a little bit too respectful. Okay, I feel like we need to spice things up. So she, you know, starts doing all this talk. And then she jumps on his back. I was like, oh, nah. I'm like, we already know this man got a bad back, bad knees, bad everything. Okay, Tom, he's feeling it. He's feeling the burn. And even me, as someone who is not half of Tom's age, 2/3 of Tom's age, let's say, I would not let someone jump on my back like that. I was like, Camille, you is trying to hurt this man. So anyway, Camille, she's letting us know she wants a little more from Tom in the bedroom, okay? And when she started saying this, I was like, oh no, are we gonna get back to this thug life stuff again? Because I can't do it. I can't do it. No more thug life from Camille. Anyways, the girls meet up and the guys also meet up. So the girls are boxing the guys are boxing and the girls are having a sound bath. So, of course, Ike did not show up to boxing and Allen is like, well, I heard that Ike moved out and that he and Emem are just dating. Now, we needed more questions on that. Did anyone else wonder why Allen directly knew this information? Because I know for a fact Allen doesn't talk to Ikechi, which means that Allen and Emem are like talking. I don't know. I just felt like we needed to ask a few more questions on that. Why did Allen know that? Now, Emem is telling the girls about how Ike moved out. You know, she's telling the girls about how, you know, asking Ike the hard questions, you know, really just asking him the deep questions to get to know somebody was really what triggered him and made him become very aggressive. So she does talk about how now he says he wants to date and things like that. And Emem's like, well, he says he wants to date now, but little does he know he would have never even gotten a second one. All right, sis, I see you. He doesn't deserve it. So Michelle decides to bring up the text. And she's telling them all about how he said his first cousin, and Emem's face was everything. Emem's face was my face when I watched it, because I was David. Now, David is telling the guys the same story, but about how it was first cousin, and they all seem to believe him. They all seem to low-key have his back. You know, they're like, oh, maybe she read something wrong, or like, maybe it was a mistake. And I was like, I know y'all are friends, but y'all can't seriously believe this story that David is putting down.
With food or whatnot, and I said, damn, it looks so good, I want to eat you up. And it's supposed to say, eat you up. So it went to her.
Yeah, so her perception is that you were like...
Now, Madison is flashing back to the girls. I was hawk-eyeing Madison's reaction. Her reaction did not pass the vibe check.
So y'all left him
No, he came home with us.
Well, like, what was he doing that night? Like, did you see him on his phone a lot? Like,
no, I think he was helping you look for your phone.
Well, when my phone was stolen.
Did not pass the check. Okay, Madison decides to chime in and say, well, there's clearly more to it, you know, don't lash out at him, be softer. If you just make him feel like he's a piece of shit, like he's not gonna open up. That reaction didn't pass the check. Madison, I'm watching you, sis. I'm watching you because I know what's going on. So Michelle and Pastor Cal. So Michelle is telling Pastor Cal again about the text, and Pastor Cal's like, you know, that sounds weird, right? Pastor Cal wasn't having it whatsoever. So she's like, also, he's been like messaging other girls, like exes, and meeting up with them for coffee. So she does talk about how her parents got divorced due to infidelity, and that's really tough. And Pastor Cal's like, and he knows that, right? And he still did it. And she's like, oh, actually, I don't think he knows that. So David does show up. David shows up, and he once again tries to reiterate 100% that this text was for his cousin, okay? He keeps sticking with it.
why is this the first time hearing about this?
Because I was trying to hold everything in on the patient side of like, I felt that that was the best way to kind of keep us going. But
Sort of suppress it.
Yes, yeah.
But I feel like he's
So Pastor Cal's like, okay, so I hear you're also meeting up with exes for coffee. So what's that all about? He starts to laugh, and Pastor Cal is like, what are you laughing about? Like, I wasn't feeling David's vibe. I don't like David's vibe. We'll talk in a second, but I don't like David's vibe. David's like, I'm gonna be honest, like the girl I met up with for coffee, like she has a boyfriend, like, which was even weirder. I'm like, David, so you're telling me that you meet up for coffee with a girl that you previously dated from Tinder who is now in a new relationship behind your wife's back? Yeah, David, you went from like a 7 where like, okay, we was all making excuses for you because we felt bad and we didn't think you deserved it. We thought you were a respectful guy. You went from like a 7 to a 0, for me at least, 0. Because what is this? What are these excuses? What are you talking about? So Pastor Cal is like, who cares? Pastor Cal couldn't hold it. He was like, who cares if she's in a relationship? True though. I felt the same way. So Michelle is like, look, I just feel like if you're willing to let me know all of this, what are you hiding that's even bigger? And Pastor Cal is like, yeah, it does come off weird. Like maybe you are hiding something. Maybe there is something going on behind the scenes. Now, Pastor Cal's like, okay, so is there a reason why your cousin is not, you know, able to send Michelle the text? And David's like, yeah, I told her not to. I chose to not have her send it. I don't want to do it. He's like, you know, I'm gonna be honest. Due to all of the lifestyle comments that Michelle has been making, I'm starting to have doubts about this relationship. I don't feel like she deserves it. So Pastor Cal is like, okay. And Michelle pretends to act confused in this moment. And she's like, oh, but you used to say it was sexy when I was being honest. So I don't understand. And I will say this. Do I think Michelle is playing up? Of course. Like, I don't think there's an argument here that Michelle is playing up how upset she is about it. But I will say this. I do also think that when it comes to David, he pretended that he was fine with everything. And I think that's the frustration. I think that's the same thing that happened with Allen this episode. We'll talk about him later. I just think that they're at a point where they're pretending they're cool with everything. They're pretending that it's fine, but internally they're holding resentment. And at the end of the day, it's not good to be that person either. You don't get to just hold resentment and then all of a sudden lash out by cheating and then being a jerk when you're being confronted about it. It's just not fair to your partner. You have the capability to leave this relationship as well. In David's case, if you knew you wanted to be with another woman, all you had to flat out do was be like, Michelle, I'm not going to do this anymore. I want to go find somebody who likes me. And I think not one of us would have thought anything of it. I don't think anybody here would have thought it was crazy if David said, you know what, I want to go find somebody who actually likes me. But the fact of the matter is, you can't pretend in front of Michelle's face that you're cool with everything, that you're vibing with everything, that you're okay with where things are at, and then know that you're actually dating and talking to other women. Because the reality is this probably means that David has been talking to other women the entire time. Like, I highly doubt that David has been faithful at all. He's probably been talking to Tinder girls. He's definitely been flirting with Madison. Like, I just think that it's not right. So Pastor Cal is like, okay, but David, do you know that Michelle hasn't really fully closed the door yet? Like, do you realize that there's still an opportunity for her? That was BS. I'm gonna say that whole part was BS. And David's like, is that true? Because I've actually been meaning to ask you, like, is the door? And Michelle's like, well, I've wanted to quit, I've definitely wanted to quit. But every single time I keep coming back. So yeah, the door is potentially open. That's BS, Michelle. And you know it. And Pastor Cal knows it. But okay. So Pastor Cal is like, you guys have to be vulnerable. You guys have to sit down and have a genuine, honest, real conversation about what is going on, what is happening. And, Michelle is like, well, how do I get him to be honest about the messages? Like, that's what I need. Pastor Cal's like, well, have you talked to Denise? Can you get Denise involved? Like, can she verify what happens? He turns to David and he's like, would you be willing to pull your phone out? Like, do you have your cell phone? Like, would you be willing to pull it out? And he's like, no, I'm not going to talk to her. I'm not going to talk to her because this is my marriage and I don't want to involve her. But you already did, David, by lying on her. You can't say, I don't want to involve this person. Michelle would have never randomly discussed your cousin, Denise, unless you brought her name into it. Yeah, David really irritated me this episode. Y'all. But they leave Pastor Cal, and post-conversation, David's trying to make small talk outside. He's like, oh, well, how was girls' night? She was like, it was cool. Like, I don't know. Michelle's like, look, why don't you want Denise to send the message? And David's like, you don't care, Michelle. I thought you didn't care, so why does it matter? And
now you care. That's the thing. I should have cared the day of, and then it would have been fine.
I cared the entire time. That's why it's been keep bringing it up.
Okay.
She's like, I care now. And he's like, okay, I don't really get. She's like, I've cared the whole time. See, I knew it. David was really going to try to fall into this trap of like, oh my God, you only care now because you want to make me look bad. You don't even care. David, it does not matter. Two things can be true at once. Has Michelle been treating this man like trash? Yes. Yes. I don't think I've ever... I have said from the beginning of this season, she has been treating this man terribly. But at the same time, you are in the wrong. And now you're actually trying to use manipulation to try to frame it like, oh, Michelle's trying to make you look bad. And that's just not true, David. That's not true. That's not true. She's like, so why don't you just have her send the message then? He's like, I don't want to, Michelle. He's like, because I do not want to. And she's like, so does Denise have the photo? And David's like, I don't know. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't. Very defensive, very aggressive. This is the real David, y'all. This is the real David, period. She's like, okay, so like, when are we going to get to talk about it? He's like, I don't know. I got to go to work. And he gets in his car and he leaves. And I'm like, yeah. No. These two are both wrong. These two are both wrong. Michelle, obviously, for everything she's done this whole season. But David? Nah, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Because at the end of the day, as I said, all you had to do was say, I want to be with somebody else. Nobody would have thought anything of it. I don't even think Michelle would have thought anything of it. If I'm being completely honest with you. I think Michelle would have been like, okay, I totally get it, David. So Carla, Juan, and Dr. Pia, they meet up. First off, Juan updates that he did meet Carla's parents. And she's like, oh, how was that, Dr. Pia? She's like, how was that? And Juan's like, she made so much food. She brought out like all this chicken and all of this different food. And he goes on for a couple of minutes. And you can tell Dr. Pia's like, oh, awesome. But like, how was actually meeting her family? Like, how was do you guys feel emotionally closer now that you've met? you've met her family. So she's like, Carla, I saw a few pictures on your social media. And I'm wondering if Juan is okay with this. And it was like pictures of her like straddling her friend, humping him. They like kissing, like pretending to kiss or whatever. I don't know. They were some interesting pictures. And Juan's like, oh, I mean, those are just her friends, blah, blah, blah. I understand. I would probably straddle him. I'd hump him too if I was there. I don't care. Of course Juan doesn't care. I know they were trying to stir something up to see if it could get a reaction out of Juan. And Juan could give 0 Fs. He did not care. Juan was like, more power to her. I'm not going to be with this woman. I don't even know what it is. The funny thing is, I still do not understand with Juan what it is that made him decide that Carla is not it for him. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to be with her. He knows he's not going to say yes. And so he's just playing around. He's playing with emotions. He knows that this is not the woman for him. And I just don't understand and get what it is. Like, I really don't. So, Dr. Pia is like, okay, so what's it gonna take for you guys to hump each other? And Juan's like, I mean, I don't know, like, we're making our way there. They're like, we're making our way there. And Dr. Pia is like, okay, how would you feel about trying maybe tantric yoga? Like, would you be open to that? And of course they both say yes, because like I said, Juan is willing to play the game. He not gonna get close to her. He not gonna kiss her. He not gonna do the boom boom with her, but he'll play the game to pretend that this is something. So he says yes, and they're gonna do tantric yoga later. So Madison, Allen, and Dr. Pia also meet up. So they basically talk about the game that Dr. Pia gave them last week and how it's kind of improved or not improved their sexual chemistry. So basically, they start to talk a little bit about trust, that if the trust is there, Allen does say that he trusts her. However, Madison expresses that she has a bit of uncertainty about Allen, especially when he's around alcohol and the way that he acts. Now, he says he's limiting himself to 2 drinks in the bar, and he's doing all these different things. And Madison does admit that she sees this. She sees that he's trying, but she does admit that she does not find him attractive when what happened before happens. So again, I'm going to keep it a stack with you. I think Madison is another one who is just playing, going through the motions, acting like, yeah, sure, maybe we'll get there, knowing very well come decision day, it's a no. She has decided it is a no on this man. So Camille and Thomas also meet with Dr. Pia. So we learn they are still intimate with one another. And he says that he does enjoy when she initiates. Now, Camille does say this is who she is. She is, the dominant force. But for her, it does feel a bit masculine. So that she then asks like, okay, like, what do you guys like, that each other does sexually? And Thomas says that he is a giver. And she's like, do you mean oral? And I'm like, Dr. Pia, what else does being a giver mean outside of oral? Like, I feel like we did not need the inner workings. Thomas says he'll be down there till his neck hurts. I'm like, I feel like I know too much about these people's bedroom. Now, Camille says basically that she does not always want to take the lead in the relationship. She feels sometimes that she wants Thomas to take the lead, pull her hair, throw her around a little bit, initiate. She just feels that Tom is not as in the bedroom as she would like him to be. That's it. Now, in addition to that, Tom says that he feels that he would like Camille to, go down on him. Camille says she's not quite there yet. It's very intimate for her and she feels like she hasn't made it to that point. And Tom, of course, is understanding and says it's no rush. That clarifies things for me because I didn't understand. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not going to comment too much because I'm not going to comment on these people's sex life. That's just weird. So let's just keep going. So Emem has a diary cam and she shares that she is at her apartment because there was no peace in the apartment with Ike. And I was like, not you saying no peace. Don't take that man's statements before he tries to come on screen next week and say you stole his words and stuff. All right, so Carla and Juan, they do the tantric yoga. It's a complete joke. I have nothing to say about this scene. They're just laughing. It's clearly not serious. Juan's not taking it serious. They have they're back to back, just giggling. Again, Juan doesn't feel any kind of intimate connection with this woman. He has written her off. That's all I have.
So we could crack
I
my
can't
back.
pull you.
This is it?
This is it. What are you doing? Ah, you're choking me. Here's another.
Okay, so David, we get a diary cam of him, and he says Michelle is not staying at the apartment right now. He is there by himself, and he is hoping that she will eventually believe him so they can move forward. What a sly snake, this man, talking about I hope she believes me so we can move forward. I don't like it. I really, I'm telling you, David, he was here, and now he's in the ground for me. It's just, I don't like this at all. So Madison and Allen, they play the game that Dr. Pia gave them called Just the Tip. It's a sex game. Michelle, we learn she's not into intense whipping or chains, but she is into whipped cream, biting, and chocolate. Allen says after sex, he immediately likes to jump in the shower. Now she says on top is her favorite way to reach the big O. And he says, oh, awesome, that's his favorite position. Now Allen is I originally felt, and this is not the word. I don't know the right word. I know I'm using the wrong word. But I originally felt you were kind of superficial. Things were kind of transactional. When I saw you on the dance floor at the wedding on the first day and you were kind of shaking your ass and you were dancing like that, I just kind of felt like that. I don't know.
Demeanor, I'm just dancing on the dance floor at my wedding. You act like I'm on a pole with my out or something. I don't know. I think the term clubby girl is just not.
No, that's not the right word. And Madison's he tries us to clarify and be no, but once I got to know you, I obviously knew that was not correct. But I don't know, that's just what I felt originally. And Madison's oh, okay, I got you. And you can tell that Madison is clearly shaken up. So Allen, he actually goes to take Luffy for a walk, his dog, and Madison starts crying. And you actually hear the producer say, Madison, are you all right? What's good? And Madison's I just can't believe that, this is how he's perceiving me.
He's my husband, and this is not what I want. In a marriage, in my life, that didn't seem like he had my back.
He's supposed to be my husband. He's supposed to be defying those stereotypes and breaking them down, not emphasizing them. I'm tired of people feeling like I'm a certain type of way because of the way I look, and I'm always being judged because of that. And I just don't know what to do. We get a diary cam of Madison a little bit later, and Allen, they are talking, and Madison's well, we don't have to go back to square one, but I definitely need some time to get over it. And then she says she needs to step out and go make a phone call. Here's my thing with this scene, right? I think a lot of things are going on here. First and foremost, I think that Allen is kind of where David is, where he is just pent up resentment. And he's at a point where he doesn't care what he says because he feels that his partner does not like him. So because he feels like his partner doesn't like him, he's just foaming at the mouth, saying whatever. It does not matter, and he doesn't care. Now, for me, with this whole thing, I think a couple of things are weird. Number one, do I think that Madison does things that emphasize this for Allen? Yes. We even saw in this episode, she left. When they had a fight, she headed out, and Allen had no idea where she was. But the weird thing is that Allen said that he had this feeling about her on the day of the wedding, which means he didn't know her. I think sometimes we have thoughts in our head. And you don't have to say every single thought out loud. To me, this strikes me as one of those thoughts that you should have kept to yourself, Allen. Like, you don't get to just say whatever you want to people, however you want, and not expect it to be hurtful. Yes, I understand he tried to explain that's not what he meant. He didn't mean to hurt her, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, words still hurt. And in reality, it's not as if he said, oh my goodness, I feel this way about you or felt this way about you because, I don't know, the first day we got to the apartments, you went out. He said, the day of the wedding, I saw you and I felt that way, which I can understand why that would be hurtful to Madison. Especially because also, I feel like for Allen to be saying that, this is the kind of woman you wanted though, Allen. You're just mad she don't like you. And I understand that. And I get the resentment and frustration surrounding that. But it's like, you wanted this woman. You wanted a younger, attractive woman. Be so for real. So for you to act like, oh, you know, I got this party girl is crazy. But at the same time, does Madison sometimes do things that emphasizes this thought in Allen's head? Yeah. I mean, it sounds like they go out all the time. They both do. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I think it is weird for Allen to be acting like he is better than her, because it does sound like he also goes out to the bar fairly often. I think 1 out of every 3 scenes we have of the two of them is them talking about being at a bar, whether it's together or with their individual friend groups. So I also think for Allen to be acting like he don't be going out is a little weird. We'll hold on that. So Camille and Thomas, we get back to them and they have like a blindfold and she ties him up. She puts an avocado in his mouth. You know, they're trying to really steam up their sex life. That is their whole episode. It's about their sex life. And Tom, he starts to lay it down. Okay, Mr. Put It Down. And then we get we hear them from the outside and the rest is history. So Allen has a diary cam. He realizes that it is almost 1 a.m. and Madison is not home. Now, she claims she was going to make a phone call. We do get a scene of Madison the next morning. She says, look, like, I thought we were making a turn in our relationship. I thought we were getting closer. Again, another liar, another BSer. No, you didn't. But anyway, but now because Allen basically called her a hooker, she's not sure where it's going. Thought hooker was an interesting choice of word. I also think transactional was an interesting choice of word. Transactional was messed up. I thought that was messed up. But he also didn't really say hooker. But I guess you could make hooker and transactional kind of the same. Okay. So Emem calls Dr. Pia from her house. Now she does tell Dr. Pia, update, me and Ike actually didn't move in. And she's like,
when the 4 of us met and had both agreed to move in, did something different happen right after we left?
Nothing happened right after you left. There was no communication.
Wait, what? What happened? She's like, well, after you guys left, there was basically no communication. Like, we didn't really talk. And now he's at homecoming in Houston by himself. She also reveals that Ike has not communicated with her morning and evening as he claimed he was going to. Now, Dr. Pia is like, so did you reach out to him? Do you want to reach out to him? And she's like, if I'm being honest, I don't. Because I don't want to deal with the rejection. I don't want to pressure him. I'm just kind of at a point where I want to let him make some of the first moves. So overall, she feels like he abandoned the marriage and she wants it to work, but it's hard because she's being stonewalled. And Dr. P is essentially like, I hear you, Emem. I totally get it. Unfortunately, because Ike is in Houston, there's nothing we can really do right now because he's not around. But, let's reconvene at another date. So Carla and Juan, they get a tantric yoga coach. This lady, what was she wearing?
There's no destination or goal. It's just about having fun. There's no pressure to have this lead anywhere except for play.
Great.
I wrote in my notes, these two are good actors because I feel like they both know this is not going anywhere. I feel like even Carla doesn't like him like that anymore. I feel like even Carla is just like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll try it with this guy. Carla Carla does say in the confessional she feels like Juan is enjoying himself doing this, you know, but he's not taking it seriously. Yeah, nothing is serious to Juan because he's written you off, period. So Madison and Allen, they're at the gym and he's like, so where are you at? And she's like, well, you know, a lot of people don't take me seriously and they feel like, oh, I didn't work for anything I have and I just got to where I am because of daddy's money or the way I look, and that's why my feelings are hurt. You know, now she's like, I do understand that this didn't come from a place of malice. I understand you didn't mean to hurt my feelings. And once again, he tries to say, like, I really didn't mean it. Like, I didn't mean it that way. And she's like, look, I feel like sorry. She's like, well, I feel like you were connecting this stereotype to me that I didn't necessarily, like, there's nothing I did to get that. And he's like, okay, like, well, you always assume I'm a pushover. No offense. Like, you assume I'm a pushover, and guess what? I'm able to get over it, and I'm able to deal with it. Like, no offense, but you are more sensitive than anyone I know.
No, you are, though.
I'm not. I'm really not. I'm trying to say that when I feel I'm being judged.
And she's like, so are you really gonna flip it on me? Like, and I didn't like that. I think that's actually a horrible thing to do in fights, to try to deflect from your bad behavior by trying to pin it on the other person. Very toxic, very bad behavior, and very bad habit. You know, Allen, this would have been the time to just take the heat and say, look, I used the wrong words. Because at the end of the day, sure, maybe he really did not mean it to be hurtful. But again, you have to watch what you say. Just because you say something hurtful and then you're like, oh my God, I didn't mean it that way, doesn't take back what you said. And whether or not you think Madison is a party girl or not, him saying that he thought things were transactional with her is messed up. Like, I'm sorry, that is messed up. I feel like it would be very different even if he was like, oh, I thought you were a party girl. But he said things are transactional. And I do think that is messed up to say about a woman for no reason. Like, that's weird. Like, I don't know. So I can understand the frustration. He's like, look, like, I feel like we can use, you know, our communication and that can all apply to you. He's like, I don't know, like, you didn't come home last night and I really had these dreams about the show being turned off and you getting a brand new husband and me having to watch. And I was like, I don't like how Allen's flipping it all on himself. I don't like how he's doing that. I think it's very, very bad. She's like, okay, but can you just show some empathy? Like, you really hurt my feelings. Like, I don't understand. And he's like, how do I not show empathy? And she's like, you know what? I'm going to head out. I'm going to go because I feel like you're not hearing me. You're not listening to me. And again, in this fight, I don't necessarily think there's one direct right and one direct wrong. But I think in this particular conversation, I think Allen is mostly in the wrong. I just think that you need to take accountability for what's wrong. And again, Allen is in the David boat where it's like the resentment was piling up, piling up, piling up. He was waiting to unleash that she called him a pushover or implied that he was a pushover. And I just think that's not fair to do in an argument. So again, if you have all this resentment and all this anger, Allen, you are also a grown man that is capable of leaving this woman and saying, hey, I'm going to go somewhere where I'm wanted. So I didn't love it. I obviously think also with Madison, like, yes, there are things that Madison has done that are not conducive to a relationship. Madison has even said that previous partners have told her that she prioritizes her friends, she prioritizes her family way more than she prioritizes the relationship. So we know Madison also has this issue. Two wrongs. There doesn't always have to be a right and wrong. Sometimes there's just two wrongs. All right, so they get back to the apartment, or Allen, I should say, gets back to the apartment, and he's like, look, I didn't hear from you for a certain amount of time last night, and that made me really worried. It really made me realize I have an immense amount of care for you. I'm not necessarily in love with you. I would like to be, But I have a lot of love for you and I have a lot of care for you. Like, you know, I feel like I've been trying to appease you so we can get to this point in the relationship. And I just necessarily, like, I feel like we're not getting anywhere. And it's like, finally, Allen, root. You feel like you've been changing yourself a lot in order to get her to like you and that it's just not going anywhere. That's what we needed to hear from the beginning. Now, Madison is like, once again, it really did hurt my feelings, but I'm not mad at you. And Madison, I'm gonna need you to be a little more upfront too, because I feel like Madison is trying to play it off, but then at the same time wants to make him feel bad. And it's like, no, Madison, you don't get to say, I don't care, it's fine, but I'm also really upset. No. Be for real, say that it hurt your feelings, say that it triggered you, say that you've gotten comments like that before. You have, she did say it to some level, but you can't be saying this like, I'm not mad at you when you're clearly upset. Like, you are upset. So just be honest and be for real about that too. She says, look, like, we may not always be on the same page, but I do really care for you. It was already a no for Madison, but it's a real no now. It probably pushed her closer to David. And Madison, when you was out with that friend, I know you was over at David's apartment, okay? Don't play with me. I know you was at David's apartment. Don't play with me. Last but not least, Michelle and Denise. So Michelle does decide that she is going to call David's cousin, Denise.
There was no picture of food that you sent?
No, that is incorrect. That has nothing to do with me.
Obviously, I was quite suspicious of it. And I think that if it was...
To get to the bottom of it. And she basically calls her and she's like, hey, Denise. Like, it was so awkward. She's like, hey, Denise, I was just wondering if you could give me a rundown of like this text message that David sent you, because I don't know what's going on and I can't really get anything out of him. She's like, okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't condone this. I want to be part of this. So I'm going to just say it. David sent me a text message asking, hey, can you cover for me? I don't have further information. I don't know who it was to. I don't believe that. I do think Denise has more information. But I don't condone this. I'm not going to lie, you know, for him. I don't know what's going on. You know, I cannot be on board with it. So Michelle's like, there was no food picture. And she's like, no, there was not. And it's like, surprise, surprise. We obviously knew that it was to another one. Like, we obviously knew. But it's just the part that frustrates me is David trying to pretend like Michelle was grilling him and calling him a liar and he's so truthful, when in reality, that's not how you are. That's, I think, what got me the most. I don't like that kind of behavior. I don't like when people try to play up the good guy act and manipulate people by being like, but I'm the good guy and you're the terrible person that treats me bad. No, two wrongs. Just like Madison and Allen, two wrongs. But that is how we end the episode. As I said, I will be recapping After Party, and that video should be up either tomorrow or Saturday. So look out for that, because David was on After Party this week, and last week Michelle was on. But anyways, if you made it to this point of the video, that means you liked the video. So I would greatly appreciate if you would consider supporting the channel by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. It really helps to get the videos out there, and it inspires me to keep creating. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!